Hey there! A popular way that people jumpstart their programming journey is by joining a coding bootcamp. And a coding bootcamp is a short intensive program where they teach you how to program and go through a coding curriculum with other students and instructors. And then at the end of the program, they may offer you a certificate of completion, or they may promise to connect you or network you with companies that are hiring new developers. And it sounds good on paper until you see the price tag. And then you start to wonder, is it really worth it? Why should I pay that much money to learn something that I could just learn online for free? And would I actually have a higher chance of landing a software job if I go through this bootcamp? So these are the questions that people are asking. And with 10 plus years of professional coding experience under my belt, I do have a lot of thoughts about this. And I when I look online, I don't really see people talking about some things that I think people should be talking about. So I'm going to be talking about them in this video. So in this video, I'll be talking about what coding bootcamps are really like and why they're a waste of your time and money and why self-learning is the better way. Let's discuss. My name's Henrik, and I'm here to teach you how to program your own applications, stress less, build more, save time, and improve lives and the lives of others. And before we begin, if you're new to programming and you want a way to jumpstart your programming journey, I have a free guide called my Personalized Finance App Programming Guide. It teaches you how to go from no coding experience to building your first app. And basically what it does is you go through your credit card transactions and then you can categorize them in different budget categories so you know how much you're spending. And it's free. It's a free guide. You can download it in the link in the description. And if you download it and pay attention to what it says, you will definitely learn some fundamental programming concepts. All right, so let's do a short breakdown of what coding bootcamps are like. So let's go talk about the pros. So the pros that I saw online and what I've read online is that they have accelerated learning. So you learn how to program and in a really fast pace. So it really jumpstarts your programming journey in a sense. And second, they have community learning. So you're going to be learning with other students, and then you can work together on projects and you can meet people. And then another one is you get to network with other people and other companies. So that was one of the pros that they had, is when you finish the program, they'll connect you with companies who are hiring and also set you up with some interviews. So that's really nice. And then another pro is that they have instructors who can help you along the way. All right, so the cons are it's really fast paced, and so basically you get too much information in little time. So it's really fast paced, and I've heard that some people would even have to go or study for 40 hours a week. And that's really hard for people to do who are working full time. If you're trying to learn how to program and you have a full-time job, it's going to be hard for you to join a coding bootcamp. And a lot of advice out there is that if you join a coding bootcamp, you should learn some fundamental programming concepts first, so that when you're in there, you're not completely lost. You can follow along with the instructor and keep up to pace. I see people online also say that if you're going to spend that much money on a coding bootcamp, you might as well just join a community college and take a programming course there. So how much is a coding bootcamp usually? It's around $10,000. So let's scroll down here. Oh yeah, so the median price here is $11,900, and the typical price is between $7,500 to $13,950. So that's pretty expensive, but a lot of people justify that amount because they say that a coding bootcamp will really help you land that first job. And if you get paid well at that first job, it's going to pay off the coding bootcamp that you bought. But a lot of people also push back on that idea, and they say that those job placement numbers are actually pretty inflated. And a lot of people who come out of coding bootcamps, the majority of them don't actually find jobs, and the majority of them don't even know how to code afterwards, which is interesting. And that's kind of sad because you're going to pay $10,000 basically, and you don't know how to code, and you can't find a job. Now I don't think that's worth it, right? Another con about coding bootcamps is that most of them focus on web development. And web development is not all there is about programming. So that's the first misconception. Coding is not just web development. There's a lot of different fields where you can code. And web development is just a small subset of all the programming fields that you can go into. So if web development is not for you and that's all you know about coding, you're missing out on all of the different fields of programming. You can go into AI, you can go into machine learning, you can go into embedded systems, you can go into GUIs, you can go into Android development. There's so much more that you can go into, and it's not just web development. So I want to go back to the pros. So there's 4 main pros that I mentioned. There's accelerated learning, community atmosphere, networking, and instructors. Now, the first one, accelerated learning, is actually kind of like a con, because if you don't know much about programming, you're going to feel lost, and you're going to have a hard time keeping up. You have to learn. People say you have to learn a little bit before you go there to learn. That's kind of weird. And then the second one is community atmosphere. Now, I think you can make up for this. You don't have to go to a coding bootcamp to get this community atmosphere. There are a lot of communities online where you can learn with other programmers. You can learn with other people who are aspiring developers. And there's a lot of resources online. You can join a Discord, you can go on Reddit, you can join a Facebook group, and you can go to networking events. You can go to a job fair. That's how you can network. You don't have to go to a coding bootcamp to network with people. And in these networks, there's a lot of people there who can program, that can teach you. Like there's one Reddit group that I joined called Learncoding. And there's a lot of people, knowledgeable people there who can teach you. If you have a question about programming, you can just type it there and then they'll teach you. One Reddit I joined is for C programmers, and a lot of people type in their code. They share their code, and people in that community actually look at your code and give you good suggestions on your code. So you don't really need to join a coding bootcamp to get some feedback on your code. So after doing some research on coding bootcamps, I think there are some things that we can know for sure. First is coding bootcamps are not all the same. There's some that are really bad, and then there's some that are actually really good, and you can learn a lot. Second one is there's a certain type of people who benefit from it, and that's usually the people who are self-driven people who've already learned some programming already. So when they go in there, they have some experience, they can keep up with the pace, and they can gain a lot from it. And the second type of people who benefited from coding bootcamps are people who need structure and who really need that classroom environment to push them to learn how to code. One big theme that I saw is that a job is not guaranteed, because I think that makes a lot of sense, because a job depends on a multitude of factors. First, it's all about the company. If the company needs your services, needs your skills. Second, it's about the individual. If you have the skills that are needed, if you really put in the time to learn programming, if you are proactive in learning, and then thirdly, if you're a good fit with that company. So it's really hard to predict if you can actually get a good job after a coding bootcamp. And I think coding bootcamps are actually only worth it if they can guarantee that you can get a job afterwards. And since that you can't really guarantee that, I don't think it's worth it, because you're going to pay $10,000, and if you can't really get a job that will help pay for that afterwards, then it's not really worth it. Now, some people might say, well, what about going to college? You spend all that money to go to college, and there's no guarantee that you'll get a job afterwards. But I can say that for sure that you'll have a way higher chance of getting a job after you get your degree versus if you just joined a bootcamp. And the last bottom line truth is you get what you put in. Most like with all things in life, if you don't put a lot of hard work into it, if you don't put dedication and focus into your work and into studying, then you're not really going to go far. And so same with boot camps. If you join a boot camp and you're just passive, you're not really going to get much out of that boot camp. But if you join a boot camp, you should really be proactive and try to follow everything that goes on in the boot camp and try to take advantage of all the features that they give you. Now, I'd like to give a helpful analogy here, and I think this should be obvious, but programming languages are really similar to verbal languages, right? You can learn everything you need to learn to become fluent in a language by learning it online. You also need dedication and discipline. And you also need a community that you can practice the language with. And I think it's the same with programming languages. You can learn all of it online for free. You just need some self-dedication and self-discipline. And you need community. I think community will help you really become more fluent in programming. A lot of the things that I've learned in programming I've learned it from other people by listening to the way that other people code. If you just code in a vacuum, you're not going to develop really good code. It's when other people are looking at your code, giving you suggestions. That's how you get better at programming. And the same with a verbal language. You get better by practicing your verbal language with other people, communicating with other people, and using your language. Can you imagine learning a verbal language at a boot camp and then paying $10,000 to learn that verbal language? I don't think that's worth the money, because verbal languages, they take a while to learn. You can't just learn it in a short period of time in a high, intense, fast-paced learning environment. It's something that you learn over a long time of experience, a long time of communicating with people, and learning the culture of that language. And the same with programming. No one really talks about this, but there is a culture in programming. If you learn how to program and then other people know how to program, you both can sort of talk the same language. There's a way of doing things, implementing things in a certain language, and each programming language has its own culture, and they have their own methodologies, they have their own philosophies, coding philosophies, and no one really talks about that. And for you to really learn that culture, it takes a long period of time. You can't just learn it in a short span. It's like my Spanish class. I took Spanish in high school and middle school, and I actually took it for 3 years, but I didn't become fluent at it. And it's just crazy to me for me to think about, can you imagine believing that if you take a Spanish class like Spanish 1A, you would become fluent, you become a good programmer after that? I don't think that's realistic. And one of the big parts of programming is design. You really learn how to design through experience, through having projects in the past. And you can't really learn that in a coding bootcamp. I mean, you can learn some experience in a coding bootcamp, but being a really good developer, being a successful programmer, really takes years of experience. I would like to highlight this one Reddit response from a person who taught bootcamps for a few years, specifically for web development. Most of the students I taught should have gotten their money back. I think out of a class of 20 to 30, maybe 2 to 3 ended up being successful. Not that others couldn't be, they just didn't like putting in the effort, and that's what it is, effort. I think this really summarizes bootcamps. It's not worth the money. A small amount of people end up becoming successful, and it really boils down to the effort that you put in. Alright, so here are my final thoughts. I think you should focus on self-learning. And if you really think about the people who thrived in boot camps, those people were the self-learners. Those were the people who were proactive, who studied programming even before they went to the boot camp, and the boot camp just pushed them ahead, pushed them along. So if you boil it down, the successful people in programming are those who were self-learners. Those who landed jobs after their boot camp, did they really get those jobs because of the boot camp? Or was it because of the individual? Was it because they actually were proactive and they actually put in their effort and the hard work to self-learn and the patience? Another reason why I advocate for self-learning is because this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. As a programmer, you're constantly self-learning. You're not going to learn all there is to know about programming from a bootcamp. You don't even learn all there is to know about programming from a degree. As you grow in your programming journey, you're going to constantly learn new things. Now, I've been coding for 10 plus years, and over the years, I've never stopped self-learning. I've always been learning on my own. I've been picking up new languages, new skills, and that's because our world is always evolving. It's always growing. New technologies come up, and you have to adapt. And so why not develop that habit now? At the beginning of your programming journey, start developing those habits and self-discipline to learn programming. And so you don't need to join a coding bootcamp. You just need to be a self-learner. So those are my thoughts about coding bootcamps. I'd love to hear what you think. Have you taken a coding bootcamp? And if you disagree with me and you think it's worth it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've taken a bootcamp and you haven't had a good experience, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And if you need a project to help in your self-learning, I have a guide called my Personalized Finance App Programming Guide, and I think it's really helpful because it's a way for me to teach you step by step how I would think about coding this project, and that's how you can learn. You learn from how other people think, and you can download that again in the link in the description, and I hope it really helps you and helps you become a better self-learner. Alright, thanks for watching this week's video. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to what I have to say, and until next time, peace.